So today we're taking a look at a Mainz game I had today, and I'm sure we've all been there. Tier 8 cruiser, maybe you're grinding up a line, or you're playing one of your premiums. Cruisers can be tough to play at Tier 8. Typically, you're lacking a heal, you're lacking the 6th upgrade slot, which usually gives you extra DPM, oftentimes missing out on some range as well. So it's not easy to play a Tier 8 cruiser, especially into Tier 10s. Let alone Tier 10s on such an open map. I think this is one of the harder maps to play because there's really only a couple islands that you can play around, and that assumes that the enemy team is going to push into you in such a way that they don't just outright overrun you. And that's what's going to happen in this game, actually, is they're just going to overrun us, and we're still going to have no island cover. So I want to talk a little bit about the things I'm thinking about in this game and some of the things that maybe you could use to make these experiences a little bit less frustrating. And the first one is take your time with positioning. Notice how we're just sailing around for the first 3 to 4 minutes of the game. That's it. We're just sailing up to the corner of the map here. And hopefully we're going to be able to use this island to farm over. Oftentimes there can be a stalemate up here. Know where those stalemates can end up. Try and play around your DDs. Unfortunately, our Marceau didn't stay up north here. So we don't actually have DD support. This is important because it means, well, my teammates here are just going to turn out and start kiting away. We don't have any spotting for the DDs. And it means I also have to get away. Even though I really want to use this island, I'm not fully committed to using this island till the end of the game. I'm not going to die on this hill, I guess. So I'm not really excited about playing an open water game against tier 10s, especially against a Kremlin and a Kaba. But it's what we're going to try and do here. So I'm going to try and focus out the Kaba at least a little bit. That extra DPM that the Kaba provides can very quickly snowball a flank. And it's very good always to get a bit of chip damage on a DD when you can, especially since right now the Kremlin is behind an island. We're running away though. This is not like we're going to hold this kind of flank. This is not that at all. We only have one tier 10 here, the Kurfürst, who is, well, at the very back running away already. I guess maybe the Donskoy is a little farther away. So it's a very difficult flank to deal with. And as a tier 8 bottom tier cruiser, our goal here really is just to live. As a cruiser player in general, you want to live till the mid to late games. When there's less crossfires, when there's a lot more lower HP ships, that's when cruisers really start to shine. Their flexibility, their fire rate, their range, their DPM can really turn a lot of games around. Because of that, less pressure, less crossfires, less guaranteed incoming damage for you. Maybe you can even use your concealment to sneak around the map a little bit. It's really good for cruisers in the late game is what I'm trying to say. So you want to be waiting until the late game to commit your HP. And that's what we're trying to do here. Notice we already have lost some HP, but I'm okay with it. We still have our, green HP, which is more than 75% of our HP in the early game. This Kremlin does come out, 11 kilometers away from us? But there's a broadside Z10 in front of us. So I assumed that guy's going to be giving me a distraction, right? This is something you can be doing in your cruisers. Even though I'm not comfortable here in a open water engagement against a Kremlin at 11 kilometers, I have teammates around me. And there's always going to be someone taking the focus. And now that the Z10's dead, it's probably going to be me, let's be honest. Close range, 12 kilometers away, Kremlin overmatches me. It's probably going to be me over the Ruprecht or the Kurfürst here. But as the Kurfürst pushes in, and maybe as I'm able to get a little bit more distance, the Kurfürst and the Ruprecht are likely going to take focus, which means I can still get my damage in. So this is the crucial part here. I'm going to be trying to shoot these guys as they're pushing in. If I don't shoot and I just go dark and say, nope, I can't play this flank right now, I need to go to the other flank and find an island to hide behind and spam over, we're probably going to lose this game because the enemy team, although we do take a massive citadel there, the enemy team is just going to win this flank and run over the rest of our team. So it's a fighting retreat that we have to take here. And it's really important to recognize the difference. In this case, we do have to fight. But early game, we're not trying to commit. We're actually spending 3 to 4 minutes repositioning. And there's times in the mid game where that is also going to be true. And I'm actually going to make quite a few mistakes this game that I will try and point out where I should have gone dark and repositioned it to a much better position. to try and deal a little better in the late game. This is something that cruisers really take advantage of. They're pretty weak at close range open water, but you can get that right flank, that perfect position behind the right island. They become extremely powerful, as we'll see later on in this game. And it's almost worth a lot of the time to give up some of this open water damage farming to actually go find that good position and get there a little bit earlier. And that's something that I still need to work on a little bit in some of these games. I do think what we're doing is still very good. We took a random citadel. I do think we were angled enough that the Kremlin, even with his overmatch, shouldn't have been able to get through to our citadel. We have a turtleback that can't be overmatched by Kremlin. At that angle, it should have bounced, or at least just given him a full pen. Instead, he got a citadel. So we lost a lot of HP, and that's okay. That's going to happen to you. As a cruiser, open water, overmatch, you're going to lose HP. This is where I really would love to see some more tier 8 cruisers get a heal, some lower tier cruisers get a heal. I think it'd be really interesting to give just one heal to every cruiser in the game. Superintendent, I mean, it'd be a little bit confusing, but I would make it so Superintendent does not impact that extra heal. So at tier 8 and below, you only get one heal. That's it. You can make a mistake and you can still heal back a little bit from it. And then as you get to high tiers, you get those more heals, and that makes cruisers much better as we go up the tiers. It's one of the things that makes tier 9 cruisers much, much better than tier 8 cruisers, even though they don't always gain a lot of range or DPM or gun caliber. It's kind of interesting. I really do think that. It's the extra healing. And of course, the 6th upgrade slot, which is probably one of the better upgrade slots in the game. So now the enemy team has definitely taken out our curve first, our distraction is gone, and now we have to deal with the Kremlin's focus again. So even though I was using all of my guns, there's some overmatch again. So now's the time where I probably should be going dark. I still want to help deal with this Kremlin. I'm hoping that our Ruprecht can trade out this Kremlin. We can get a trade here, but I should be going dark at this point and actually heading for H5. And you'll see why later on in this game as I finally make my way to H5. I spend too much time here in open water dealing very little damage. Since these are only 150 millimeter guns, they do, 1038 millimeters, I believe. So pretty good pen, but the alpha damage is extremely low. I'm low health, so I'm really not adding too much here. I guess maybe I'm helping my Ruprecht stay a little bit alive, since I'm the distraction now, and the Ruprecht can live a little bit longer and get some more damage in, but yeah, I'm getting lucky. Some of these salvos that should probably be overmatching and doing some full pen damage are now just bouncing miraculously off of our belt armor. So I guess I did get away with a few here, even though we took some weird citadels earlier on. You'll notice I'm not getting greedy for my main guns, even though I do think this is a mistake what I'm doing here. I'm greedy for damage here, but I'm not using all of my guns while I know the Kremlin's looking at me. As soon as the Kremlin stops looking at me, then I open up to get all my guns off. At this point, he's exiting my gun range. There's really not a whole lot I can do. I get an extra fire, but he does have a damage control. And then, of course, he's actually exiting my gun range, and there's no way I'm going to push back in since their Pommern and their whole team from the north is actually getting much closer. So our Ruprecht goes down, the Kremlin is going to go dark, he's actually going to live. So this is where I say I probably should have done this repositioning earlier. So now that it's almost too late, this island here at H5 is extremely powerful to deal with the enemy team pushing from the north, assuming you have spotting, which we do have. And there's going to be maps and islands on maps that are like this, where the enemy team gets control of one side of the map, you get control of one side of the map, and then all the islands have their utility changed. So instead of dealing with each other's spawns, you're dealing with the left side of the map to the right side of the map. And there's going to be more islands, different islands that open themselves up as being extremely powerful for cruisers. And it's important, I think, that you don't give up too much HP in getting to those islands. But in the downtimes like this, where you're not going to do that much damage, maybe you've lost a lot of HP, you can stay in stealth and get to these islands. Notice that the enemy Kaaba is just entering the B cap. The enemy team is probably going to capture B. But if I had repositioned just a little bit earlier, I probably would have been ready for them at this H5 island. And you're going to see how I play around this island too. And this is something you'll have to learn how to do based on your ship's characteristics. Some of them have very flat shell arcs, which means it's very difficult to shoot over islands. Others have very floaty shell arcs, which means you can use a lot more islands in this way. Typically, those cruisers that have floaty shell arcs tend to be a little squishier as well, so you have to use those islands a lot more. The ones with better shell arcs tend to have a little more armor, a little more flexibility for open watering, so it's not too big a deal. But it's important to understand that you can use these islands no matter what cruiser you're in, and limiting the number of people shooting at you, the angles. I talk about this all the time, but you want to take 1v1s in this game, or 2v1s where you're favored. You don't want to be in situations where there's multiple ships able to shoot at you from various different angles, especially with all these long-range battleships that are extremely accurate. Looking at you, Satsuma. Of course, tier 8, we can't see Satsumas, but still, these tier 10 battleships are all quite scary as well. And we're already starting to use this island. But ideally, I would be a little bit closer to this island, and that way I would limit the number of people who can even spot me. We're able to shoot over this island completely dark. This is what we want to be doing. And this is where, if I had repositioned earlier on, I could have started doing this extremely powerful farming and damage dealing from behind this island at low HP, and people can't spot me. And this would have been a great way to defend the B cap. Instead, I took too much time. I didn't even end up helping kill the Kremlin, and the enemy team ended up getting control of the B cap. It's not the end of the world, but it was something that I could have done better in this game. And as we're getting to this Donskoy, and he's actually going to reverse out of our range, Duncan gets killed by Kaba Torps. 2 people killed by Kaba Torps in this game, by the way. So congratulations to that Kaba player for having an absolutely insane Kaba game. Torpedo build Kaba, maybe? No, that's certainly a gun build. Nobody should build Torps on the Kaba. But here, skipping ahead just a little bit, I just did some repositioning in like a minute or two. And this is the position I should have been taking. Just like this. Notice how this guy is not able to spot me. I'm able to shoot all my guns over this island. And as this Pommern pushes out, I want you to take a notice of how I slowly maneuver my ship just to always keep the island in between myself and the Pommern. As he is pushing across the screen to the right, I'll be moving around behind the island to my left. And this is always going to allow me to lead in front of his ship and allow me to get these turrets and these shells off, even around this giant cliff that's to my left, as the smaller part of this island is getting less and less useful. So this is the kind of positioning that I should have been taking, and it's very powerful, as you can see. We've got a massive AR buff. Mainz having, what, a 4.5 second reload is pretty insane. Even if it is just a tier 8 with pretty small caliber, low damaging guns, this damage is going to add up, especially if we can get some fires. And this is what I'm talking about. Cruisers can be very powerful, but it's got to be in the late game. It's got to be once you can take positions like this. Early game, got to play patient. You got to find those good islands where you can play safe and still have a bit of battle impact, especially if you're in a double up tier like I am. I won't lie to you, it's certainly not the easiest thing in the world. It's one of the most difficult things to do as a cruiser player. But it can feel kind of rewarding at the end, although I much would prefer just playing against my own tier, against tier 8s in this case of the Mainz. You'll see that in the build at the end of the video if you're curious. This is very much a tier 8 focused build. We're not trying to fight against tier 10s, especially on such an open water map like this one. A lot more of the maps in the game are going to have islands that you can use. A lot more of them, where there's not just massive expanses of ocean, no island cover, and all these battleships able to farm into you. But this is what I'm talking about. As you can see, we're able to farm up a ton of damage here very quickly at the end of the game. I think we went from 110,000 damage as we started farming this Pommern, and we're going to be approaching 150k by the end of this game. Notice I'm also using free look. This is something that you really should be getting better at as well. I should have mentioned this earlier, but I'm constantly right-clicking my mouse. It's free look, by the way. It allows you to stay locked on to the target with your guns, and then give you a more broad view of your surroundings to maneuver your ship. In this case, around the island, making sure we can still shoot our guns. So even though it's quite difficult, being bottom tier as a cruiser, you can still have some battle impact. It's going to be hard though, and especially if you run a build like this, which is certainly not a great way to play into tier 10s. And the big problem here is I'm actually running heavy HE. This is actually making my concealment worse and making it even harder for me to maneuver around the map in concealment. And it's just making my life very, very difficult as a Mainz. If I didn't have this skill, I'd have around 12 kilometers of concealment, which isn't great, let's be honest, but it's much better than nearly 14, which is pretty much battleship concealment. I'm trying to make use of top grade gunner here and get some absolutely bonkers DPM. With Lucians as well, once we get our required number of hits, which is 100, 140, you get a 7.5 second or 7.5% reload buff. So pretty decent reload you can get on the mines. And it's very good until you get into a tier 10 game with a bunch of open water. So yeah, a bit of a different build, but Mainz is a great tier 8 premium, and it can even work in a very difficult situation like this tier 10 game. But of course, it's very fun. In those tier 8 games, we get closer brawls, you get to use the AP a little bit more. It's a pretty spicy ship. But this video, not really focused on the mines, more focused on playing in those double up tiers as a light cruiser. So let me know what you think in the comments down below. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.